welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another recap review of the new MGM Plus show, Emperor of Ocean Park, or as I also like to call it, welcome to the multiverse of timelines that you have to see every week to understand exactly what's going on in the episode. It's your boy Lucas here with my guy, Najir. What is going on this evening with you, sir?
All is well. To your notion, this is the first episode that I felt very clear on the timelines. I didn't feel so shaken up by things, but that's also because some characters were missing too from it. Some key important characters didn't show up, but also some other characters are sticking their head in there a little bit more. But I don't know. Maybe it's just because it's the third episode, or I don't know if it's because of the missing characters, but it's starting to become a little bit more easier for me now.
I think it's because, it's shocking at first, but then as you get into the groove of it and they are more clearly defining the timelines, you're like, oh, okay, I know what's happening here. It's not like that. And FX had that show, Class of 99, that just bounced all over the place, humanly possible, and it just was confusing throughout. This show is more defined in its timelines by the judge. So that's all the key. Audience too. All you got to do is look at the judge. His state of mind is every timeline.
Yeah. I also think in this one too, you can take a look at Mariah and also understand where her confidence are at in the different timelines to really help you kind of set foot with things. And also her marital status, I think, plays a big part in that as well too. You are the only person in the world that's ever going to reference Class of 99 ever. Even FS is not going to ever acknowledge them or reference them. So good for you, sir. You are officially a TV watcher.
Clearly. But let's jump directly into this episode, which for all intents and purposes that I know is entitled Chapter 3, which hey, perfectly fine with that one. But it starts off with Tao holding the missing chess piece in his hand, and we see him just contemplating exactly how it got in his office. The next scene over, we see him going into a security office with a connect he clearly has here, based off of 90s mixtapes. And we're going to talk about that song because I know a lot of y'all don't know what A Bomb Atomically is because y'all not hip-hop heads. But in this office, we get to see Tao asking him to run back the tape, and we see one of his colleagues, Mark, go into the lecture hall, and Tao questions why would he be there on his day off. What did you think about just the opening of this episode that way to immediately address the chess piece?
Warren, get right. Let's get right back into the groove of things from the previous episode. And obviously, as we talked about last week, in terms of really deciphering what's the key pivotal element, artifact, or whatever you want to say, tangible that everybody's searching for now. Obviously, as I say, by the promotion material, you would say that the chess piece is it, but then as we know, everybody else is looking for the arrangement. So source of different personal objectives for everybody. But yeah, getting back into it, it was interesting because we see this is where his motivation's at. This is where his sole focus is at. We're getting introduced to the very stereotypical person who is overworked, underpaid, and is always going to look for a handout of sorts to work a deal. So security guard being the one to broker that deal into a part two later on at that too, to kind of aid him in terms of his investigation. So yeah, this felt good to I think the biggest thing for shows is that sometimes shows says, we'll leave you off with a cliffhanger and then we'll pick up on the next episode at any given point. This one seems to say we left you off on a big point. We're going to pick up immediately on that point, on that topic, to give you exactly no little gaps, no extra continued mystery in terms of things. Like, we know this is where the focus is at for Tao. This is where we're going to drop you back off at. So I liked it. It was a good way to get us back engaged.
There you go. And if you check out the interviews on our channel with my guy here with the cast of Emperor of Oceans Park, you will pay a lot more attention to certain song selection, not only just in this episode, but throughout this entire series. For people that don't know, the song he was referencing in the beginning is called Triumph with Wu-Tang Clan. It's the reason why Triumph was a lyric that he spit. Like, from that song, it's a reason for that. Along with some having later on in the episode and another song that's referenced. I absolutely love the point that they're using hip-hop And if you know certain songs with certain lyrics from certain songs, you can identify that name and then kind of place it into exactly what's going on in that scene. So again, check the interviews out because a lot of that is explained to you exactly how important the hip hop culture is unto this show. But then when you see it played out on screen, it's just another story altogether. But next up, Tao is visited by fake FBI agent McDermott as he's walking home. And this is where, again, we go right back to the Lisa stuff and him questioning and saying, my client will leave you alone the moment we get the location of Lisa. And this is Tao telling him, I still don't know who this person is. And then Uncle Jack, for the first time, I think, in the last 2 episodes, is really brought up as a figure in the present time that you should concern yourself with. As the fake agent brings up, like, if you think he's here to help you, he's not here to help you. But if you think reaching out to him can solve this problem, I suggest you do it. I know this is just a quick meeting between them two, but I think a lot is laid out here for what happens in the rest of the progression of the episode. Just what did you think about this quick meeting between them two?
Yeah, obviously now he says, all right, there's obviously, we're trying to identify who's the good guys, who's the bad guys. And Uncle Jack has been very much labeled as a bad person. There's also another character that is introduced, reintroduced in this episode that you have to start to draw suspicions on her. And then obviously the fake FBI boys, who they say like, cool, we're not the FBI, but we have a client. Our job is to find people. And we see that they use very, I won't say threatening, but I will say they use convincing factors, intimidation in order to get who they want. So, like, obviously, they answer to somebody, and they're not sort of aligned with Jack, it seems like, because they are saying my clients. That means there's another figure involved. So, now you just start to wonder, like, well, who else is going to show up to this party? But I do like that they just add more to the pot, and this the mystery continues to grow. Then, obviously, like, who is this Lisa person? Like, I'm confused. At one point, I was like, Lisa's not a person. Lisa is an acronym. That's what I thought at first until the letter came on. Because, now at this rate, you just got to be suspicious of everything, and what sort of misdirections the show is going to give you. But yeah, I like that. Like, we're clearing up some things, but we're also adding more. So, like, we're not with the FBI. So we're not at this point concerned that the government has anything to do with it as of I don't know. There could be more. I'm not sure, but we just see that there's a lot of like independent people out here with power doing what they got to do to get to something that must lead to something bigger.
Yes, and I think that's the key point. Like, the mystery is getting a little bit more in focus on the players you should pay the most attention to. But next up, we have the first time jump, and in a new year here, and that is the 2010 year. As this is just an introduction to the timeline here, as this is Mariah as a journalist, as an investigative reporter, something that was hinted towards last episode. And here's just her attempting to break a big case. I'm not going to talk about it right now because it's not much to talk about it in this scene with this timeline. But just to know, we also have an introduction of a new timeline that's going to be prevalent throughout the rest of this episode. Then next up, we get Mariah in present time, dropping her son off in school. Here's the passive-aggressive white woman who wants to take over everything and use her dad's tragedy as a reason to do such. But the most important part here is Mariah finding out that a suspect has been arrested in the murder of, here, I got a confusion here, in the murder of Father Pastor Reverend Brown. We've heard him call every single one of these things so far.
Listen, we know firsthand. If it seems fishy within that church, it probably is. So the fact that he has 1,000 names lets you know dang something right with this brother, Hey, go you first.
I'm about to say, no, we talked about in detail in the first episode that he was named Father Brown, and all of a sudden now he is Reverend Brown. And I am, people out there, y'all can help us. I am not accustomed to fathers. Not like that. I'm not accustomed to fathers in the church because growing up as a Baptist, you don't hear father that often. But again, it's just the way it almost seems like it's a different way he related to everybody in different generations here. Yeah. So I think that's going to be highly important to pay attention to also in this season. But here, I just want to focus on Mariah as the investigative reporter. And we're going to jump ahead a little bit because I think this is a key element here to talk about her looking into Pastor Reverend Father Brown's murder case here. What did you think about her pursuit in this episode of attempting her best to find out everything that's going on with him?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, was that, by the very intrusive and overstepping white woman trying to somehow, some way claim her position, her job. I think it on the other end too, we see that Mariah, even in a situation where grieving is acceptable and maybe the time off is needed, that she is still very much fully determined and motivated to find out what's all behind with getting Uncle Jack and finding out the murderer of her father. So we see this measure of determination in the face of any bit of adversity that comes her way. And even with this, we see that she will stoop to any tactic to get what she wants. And that might have been the theme of this episode, that while she may not have had the best relationship with her father, she is 1,000% her father's daughter, because we see his tactics in the way, and we see her will stoop to anything to get what she wants or what she needs, at least. And if it involves cutting a check, if it involves being fluffy to her partner, if it's involving deceit of cloning as a family member, whatever it may be, posing as a family member, she'll do what she has to do. So there's a lot to really make with her, but I think this measure of determination could be interesting for television, but it typically is detrimental to one's being. So I'm like kind of confused in terms of what's going to happen next. I have no clue.
I think the key element here is the conversation later on in the episode between her and her dad, when he talks about her ambition. And just pay attention, because her ambition is what this episode is about here. And just her drive to do everything humanly possible. As in the next scene is Mariah calling Tal, letting them know, like, hey, everything is fishy. I don't believe none of this stuff. Clearly someone murdered Reverend Pastor Father Brown, and we need to find out who did it. But at the same time, we see Tal going through things with Kimber, as she tells him, get ready for being questioned by the FBI for my appointment. Not much to talk about here. It's just a running thing.
There's definitely one big thing to talk about here.
Go ahead.
You know who timed Kimber on?
Oh, Demon Time.
That
clearly she's on Demon Time.
If it ain't got anything to do, if it ain't about her, she ain't trying to hear it. And I think it's very clear that Kimber is I don't want to be like labeling this in terms of like gender roles or anything, but I'll just say for the slanderous tag that this comes with, like, she wears the pants in that family. She calls the shots. She dictates the movements, and any bit of attention that goes to Tal, she ain't even trying to hear it. In one ear, out the other. So when there's a couple of times in this episode where he wants to kind of open up a conversation about something that obviously, as the viewers, we can tell is concerning to him or important to him, or just means anything. And she's like, by the way, you need to like get it together. I got this whole thing coming up, let's focus on that. You know what I mean? And this marriage seems more like a partnership of sorts for some benefit. And she's not in it unless it benefits her. I at the point now, I'm just looking at it like, poor Tal, man. He's having it bad, man. This lost his dad. I would say that his wife is emotionally unavailable for him, because all she is just, she's focused on her nomination. That's it. That's the only thing that matters. And that the family optics must look legit. We can't have any little loose holes or anything in this. We got to be right, pull it together. So I that dynamic is definitely we've obviously seen it like sprinkled earlier, but now it's like really to a point, like, how does this work? How does this serve him?
Yeah.
I'll just say that. How does it serve him? Not how does it serve them? How does it serve him at this rate?
It's the meekness of Tao that's just coming to the forefront whenever he deals with Kimber. But she came into his life, if you pay attention, she came into his life as a force.
Yeah.
And he was perfectly fine, it feels like, sidestepping her and letting her run everything. And that is more of, as the episode progresses, we kind of see just how more assertive she is than him. And we can see it bubbling up inside of him. He's getting tired of it, but sometimes you can't fight it. And that's where we at with Tao with that whole relationship. Next up, we already
wait. If I could just cheat forward just a little bit here. It's also kind of like the moment he wants to hold her accountable for something, and I will say the guy in me is looking like, oh, you got her, bro. You gotta make the move, you know. And instead of it being like this big move in the form of chess, so you can say like, all right, this is clearly a checkmate, and this is like nothing. She's kind of like, yeah, I wanted to hang out, and he's like, his response was like, all right, well, I need some time for me then. I guess I'm gonna hang out a little bit more. She's like, well, that'll be good for you. It's kind of like, well, hold on. You misled him in terms of what you were at and what you were doing. He holds you accountable for it. You're kind of like shrugs it off like it's not nothing. I guess his feelings response is like, well, I guess I'll hang out more. And she's kind of like, yes, that'll be good for you. That is
the most passive aggressive form of gaslighting humanly possible.
Jesus,
that's what that was. That was her like, oh yeah, you should. Like, you need to get out the house. Meanwhile, we have a child that when I leave, you don't have to keep them. How can we both can't leave out the house at the same time?
Man, it make sense.
It's what happens when you have a dominant person in a relationship who's paying absolutely no attention to their partner.
Yeah.
Because if she did pay attention, she would kind of see that Tyler is spiraling, and she does not notice it at all.
Yeah.
Instead, everything is about her appointment. Everything is about her job. But also with Tao, it's partially also jealousy that's kicking in. And that's also leading to him spiraling because he still hasn't gotten over the roses in her office. And he is still trying to figure out exactly what's going on with that. That's why this relationship dynamic between them is so interesting.
It's interesting you use the word jealousy, because I would say that in a way you can say like, yes, jealousy, but in a way it's like he knows something's not right. I mean, the fishiness in this episode is at an all-time high. Like cherry blossoms in DC in the spring, fishy. Like I think he has justified suspicion, and he's trying to figure out an easy path to open up the conversation without it evolving into something, more explosive, should I say. And it's not working for him, but also he's like processing the feelings of everything else. Honestly, I think it's safe to say that he's not handling his feelings good at all with anything, because he's been so determined in terms of, well, like I asked Grantham, like, I don't think Tao has ever yet processed of losing his dad. It's just been like on to the next. And the interviews there, but like, I think with anything that's happening, he has yet to really process like the suspicion that his wife may be a measure of infidelity going on there. There's obviously deceit because she hasn't been fully transparent about her activities with her coworkers. She kind of said it was one way. He was like, nah, actually, you were out. And he saw her, and he saw the whole demeanor. So he has like probable cause to have this conversation, but he can't really talk about it because the gaslighting isn't really opening up any of these conversations. So this is a man right now that has had intrusion in his office, intrusion in his bedroom, and then intrusion in his family. He don't know what to do. That's an interesting character in itself.
Oh, definitely. But only reason I said jealousy is because every time he's questioning her, the answer has been concise. Exactly where she is. So he immediately believes her.
Yeah.
Immediately, without question.
Yeah.
But the reason why he has this feeling to begin with, and it's highly important to pay attention to stuff in this season. That's what I absolutely love about this show. All he's thinking of is, you cheated on me with your prior husband. Like, it's almost like he's waiting for a shoe to drop at times when something seems out of the norm from her. So, and it could be a situation where it's just conspiracies too much for him at this point. So he's
Right.
like, man, she got to be up to something. Like,
Yeah.
you out with your boss, you hugging your boss. From the outside looking in, the hug looks very business-like, friendly, like, oh, thank you for a nice dinner, and then we're going on. But to him, it looks completely different. And every time he questions her, with the answers being so concise, I think that's what's throwing him off. And that's what leads to the jealousy. And that's what leads to any woman, I'm sorry, Tal, going through her phone to share her location with him indefinitely. We all know that. We done been there this pattern before. As I'm not going to be sexist and say it, but as the dominant partner in a relationship, this has possibly happened to you before, where you magically started sharing your location with someone who you never knew you were sharing it with. And you're like, what the heck? Why do you know exactly where I'm at all times? That is kind of weird.
Yeah, man. Continue. Let's get through the episode there, because there's a lot to make with that too.
Next up is, as you already brought it up, and this is Mariah being the investigative reporter that she is, as she calls the police station to attempt to get on a suspect's family visitor list so she can talk to him. Again, this is just Mariah being Mariah. But also, I do love the point that we're seeing her in this aspect, and then we're relating it to 2010. So we fully understand she actually was an investigative reporter beforehand. So now this makes perfectly all her actions, especially in the last episode with the church when she was pretending to cry and everything. It makes it make a little more sense exactly what she's doing here. Because now we know she's just not Nancy Drew and she has no experience in this and she's doing this. Like, this was her profession and her job before newspapers went out of business. She knew exactly what she was doing.
I got a lot to say here, but I'll be quick. First of all, shout out to the brother that's incarcerated. That all his family,
I kept on trying to say his name right.
Yeah,
Point.
Yeah,
it's a Louisiana name.
Yeah,
Shreveport.
Yeah, like, listen, my man, whole family filled out the visitation law, but my man ain't have a lawyer.
Hey.
So y'all just all came up to, like, what, pray for me? But ain't nobody doing no actions. Like,
we know black families. Some of them sometimes they ain't got the money, but what they gonna do? They got Jesus. They ain't got money, but they got Jesus. So they gonna be there to pray for you.
Yeah, they filled his book up with a lot of Jesus. Then,
hey, in one day,
in one day,
damn, that's a family right there for you. I'm telling you,
man. But you gotta give credit where credit's due, and I obviously, and I said it a lot. Maybe I oversaid it, but it is what it is. Tiffany Mack is a fantastic actor, and I'm super confident that this is her coming out party. I know some of you all may have seen her in Jessica Jones, which obviously she's not the focal character, with so many other characters. Plus, that show being connected to other shows means that you could have easily overlooked somebody who was there the entire time for one of the seasons, but understanding that we have talked about her in different mindsets already. We talked about how she is very determined. We're going to talk about how she's clever. And then this other aspect of her lobbying for a position, going out on these interviews. So we kind of see her in a vulnerable state, the conversations that she has with her dad, where she's also mildly vulnerable, but also angry. Like,
oh man,
these transformations is a well-rounded character that you can write on paper all day, all day. You know what I mean? But like, some of these people out here, some of our very most popular actors that we praise are one-trick ponies, because you see a character, that person can play that character, and that character is going to do what that character is going to do, because they're going to make sure they keep it right in that box. So you don't tend to see them at times get a little bit emotional, because they're supposed to be like these characters portrayed to be hard. You know what I mean? But so like you getting this well-rounded character written, number one, and then fantastically performed by Tiffany, who's taking you on this emotional roller coaster, even to the first episode, where you was like, well, clearly she's the alpha of the trio of siblings here, only to see her break down in the car, where you're just like, oh, I felt that. Like, I felt that through her eyes even before she cried. Then to come back on this episode to see her toe to toe with her dad, Even to see her when she has the moment with her husband where she's like, propose to me, and you feel nothing, but you know exactly what's happening with that character. You know exactly what it is because you know that was a let me check this off my box real quick.
Yep. And my life is falling apart. I need to get this out the way. Yep.
So I think this if you're watching this show and you're enjoying the show, and much like me who had not read the book and you're just slowly getting into it, I think it's definitely a good time to start to invest on the Tiffany Mac wagon before it's too late and she's already on all these big blockbuster movies, another series where she's probably the lead, and you're gonna be like, oh, she's cool. Yeah, you might have known if you've been checking this out some time ago.
Exactly. So, and to pay a little bit more attention to it, as you brought up the book, and then we'll be real quick and we're gonna get right back into it. This character does not exist in the book to this detail. So the point that the creator, Mr. Sherman and Tiffany were able to formulate this character and add this many layers to this character, she's already on this show more than she's in the book. So at this point, you're seeing the progression of everything. And as my man said here, man, you better jump on this bandwagon because this is turning into Viola Davis and Doubt type of performance where it's the coming out party and everybody's going to be like, oh, nah, we got one. And when they say they got one, that's going to be it. And the next thing you know, you ain't going to be able to talk to Tiffany no more. And that's not a bad thing. It's just going to be, that's how busy she going to be. That it's going to be hard to corner her to give her any form of communication. But next up in the episode, we have the stalking happening with Tal on campus here. This is here where an Audi 6 magically almost hits him and then begins to stalk him as it's just looking at him as he's attempting to go to class. Right following the scene is when he goes right back to the security department because, you know, at this point, that's his man. And he goes in there to attempt to report this incident happening. And here again, key song, another element dropped, and that is Ghetto Boys, My Mind Is Playing Tricks on Me. And this is a way of saying that Tal is possibly questioning exactly what's going on with him, that he sees all of this around him. So right after that, he runs into Mark as he's leaving the lecture hall, as he questions him about why were you there that day? Why were you in my class? Mark comes up with an excuse here, and Tal just kind of accepts the excuse with no issue. Just what did you think about that whole scene from the chase scene to Mark to this student popping up again, who, again, no one pops up for no reason here. The student who gave him shoes as a way of grieving pops up here again as he actually asks the student about Mark and why would he have been in my lecture hall that day.
All right, so Mark was there because he said he left his projector pen. Pointer pen. Yeah. Listen, we know how, I don't know if you ever worked in the office, people are protective about their pens. I'm going to tell you right now. Because
if you don't think I will come from home to get my pen, because I'll be damned if one of you people steal it. Because that's the first thing you think of in the top of your head.
Yep. So I'm not suspicious of Mark at all right now. I think Mark is less of a target, especially with all the other aggressiveness happening all around him with fake FBI man and somebody in the Audi pulling up, all these sorts of different things. And then Keith Powers' character, Nasty Nail. I think he's a student that's just trying to get in the graces here. And I feel like the shoe is just a gesture of sorts. Even if this is completely wrong, they haven't built the utmost suspicion yet. Besides him just being a little bit awkward, like, yo, he didn't say, did you wear them yet? Did he say, did you try them? He didn't say try them on. He said something. I was like,
first he questioned him about his mindset. He said, because you didn't seem like yourself during class.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, just while on my mind. And then he kind of brought up his shoes a little bit, but not really that much.
Yeah.
All I'm gonna say is, Keith Powers ain't playing no character where he's just popping up.
With that's the only issue is that Keith Powers is one of those names now that you're starting to see pop up. He is like, the way we're talking about Keith Powers is what I feel we'll be talking about Tiffany in about a year. We'll be like, she's really popping up everywhere now. Like she's absolutely on the way. So like, yeah, it's a huge casting. It's a low-key huge casting for a low-key character that you know something is to come. But I like I said, I think that as of right now, I don't I don't have my antennas up on him just yet. Besides him being awkward. Also, I keep it 100. I used to kiss ass as a student to ensure that I got good grades. So everything he's doing, I'm like, yeah, damn right. Get in good with your teacher. You know, it's unethical to buy them stuff, and the fact that he accepted it. But I guess for the sake of like what happened, I
Hey,
guess
you do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Listen here. I've
Yeah.
always, I had one particular teacher, my philosophy 115 law and values professor. I sucked up as much as humanly possible to that woman. I didn't give a damn. I'm going to suck up to you because this class is hard, and I need to make sure I get at least an A in here, because I'd be damned if I walk away with a barely passing grade. Plus, at times you just have a teacher where you just want to pick their brain. Yeah, that could also be it. But again, we just got to pay attention to that relationship as this season goes on. Here, I'm gonna stick with Tal before we jump into what was actually the next scene, because for Tal, the next following scene is him calling Kimber and telling her we need to visit the home in Martha's Vineyard. Here is the slip up was because there's a chessboard just like the one in his study there, and Kimber saying, "Are we going there just for that?" And Tal came up with a completely different reason why, and said, "No, we're going there because one, I haven't visited the home since we got it." And basically he used the point that his father passed and the memories of wanting to visit that home. We're going to keep that right there. But the only question I have to ask you is, with that type of slip up, did you think Kimber's suspicions jumped and that's what led her to have the appraiser go there first? Or do you just think she just went along with it?
I don't know. I don't know. It's a good question. I'm not even going to add anything else. I really don't know that one. That's a good point.
Right, so we'll get back to that one. But first, the first scene before that is Mariah going and telling her husband, "We are paying." This is how you can tell they just have too much money. She literally walked and told her husband.
Let me ask you that though. That's the first thing I thought about when I watched the episode, and I will ask for a little bit of a spoiler here. Do they really have that money?
Yes.
Okay, that's it. That's all I need to know, because I'm like,
yes.
She says we'll represent him for a 3-question session. The church is going to get all of our money. There's a lot of like just tossing 25,000, 25,000, 25,000 left and right. And
all you got to pay attention to is when we first met them as a couple, they were helicoptering in one from one point of the city to the next.
That's true.
And also later on in the episode, I think it's kind of laid out a little bit more exactly how put together and how much and how powerful Howard possibly is by the judge saying, he's going to give you everything you want.
And like, I saw that in a couple of ways here. I saw that in a protective dad, which I love how his statement comes full circle. And then also, I mean, like, besides the protective dad and he's losing his baby girl, I also think too that he understands she's him, and anybody that's going to be a man in your life that's not going to challenge you like me,
there you go,
then you're just going to be nothing but a pushover to them, and you're never going to want to chase and fight as hard as you did. Honestly, this is like it's crazy to say, but like we always talk about some of like the toxic traits within our communities, or the generational trauma at times that we endure, and the forms of abuse that we experience. And I'm sure in the very sensitive and conscious and woke eyes of right now, you look at that relationship between them and you may say he's a little inappropriate to her. He's out of line about how he's talking to her, how he's treating her. And there's some give or take on that. But like when you really do genuinely see what he tried to do for her and the father he tried to be, she wouldn't be anything that we're talking about in this character right now, of all the things that she's able to do and move around and maneuver, if she didn't have somebody that was on top of her heart like that. He's protecting her for the future. Obviously, he, as any father, will probably think that you're not going to be around forever. So you have to ensure that you put them on a course for success. And that's all he did. He said it. I just wanted to protect you because you had already had enough losses and you had enough rejections in your life. And if you take this path with him, because I like him, he's a good guy, you're not going to have that same fire that you have. That and at the time, and we can speak personally here, but you know, when you meet somebody, you know somebody that has that fire and determination that what they want to do. Some folks looks at it as a measure of recklessness. Some folks looks at it as a measure of passion. And these folks get and do what they need to get in life, and nothing can stop them, which is, in my eyes, healthy, because ain't nothing worse than wasted fucking potential. That is my whole spiel. I think I can log off now.
I think, and that's partially why the judge said what he said, which was, he's a good guy, just not the right one for you.
Yeah.
That's him understanding who his daughter is. I think that's the key element here, especially when you have children. You have to realize who your child is and understand everybody ain't for everybody. This person could be an amazing person, but they're not the right person for you.
Hey, he already said
that they can
the
give
job
you
wasn't for you either. He knows it. He knows her.
Exactly. But he says it all the time. Like, I've done everything for you kids. Like, my job has been to protect you. As harsh as we think he is towards her, if we pay attention to it, he's never done anything to the kids where he's not attempted to put them in the best predicament to win. And that's the key part of the judge in that relationship with his children. But we get a little bit deeper than that, because that's going to come on a little bit later. We're going to run through some of this stuff quick because we already kind of touched on it. Next up is Tal, as he's walking home, and he briefly sees Kimber and hugging up on her boss. Some we kind of already talked about. This is where even more suspicion comes out, because he can't help it.
Not this being the this is like a triple entendre right here. Not this being Vantage Point, which I just brought up the other day that I need to go watch again, which is also starring Forrest Whitaker.
Dennis Quaid?
Forrest Whitaker?
No, but Dennis Quaid's in Vantage Point too.
Yeah,
where the bomb blows up and everybody from different Vantage Point.
Yeah. Not this being the Vantage Point. So the first part of this is because Forrest Whitaker's in it too. Of Club Truth. And we're seeing the whole reenactment of Jamie and Angela coming out the club. And it just happens to be them. Am I right? Not Tal being Angela and Tasha outside. Hey, he might be though. He might really be Tasha.
At this point in this show, Tal is Tasha. All he is missing is when they get in, the next fight him and Kimber get into it.
Oh no!
She smush him. That's it. You Tasha.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Oh boy. Go ahead. I'll stop interjecting.
Next up, we go back to 2010, and this is when Mariah gets laid off from her job. Here, this is one, I love that this is real life, especially in 2010, of them saying newspaper sales have declined. We're trying to push everything to our digital format, and that is rather on the blog or on Facebook. Amazingly, this is the beginning of actually where news is now, but we see just how real journalists saw that move and saw it as a downgrade to everything they could possibly do here with Mariah. And then afterwards, she has a conversation with Howard, who kind of even brings up her talking to her dad and seeing if her dad could open up some space for her. At the same time, he offers her a soft life, saying, I can give you everything you want. Well, this is no longer an issue, but this is where we see the beginning of Mariah's ambition, as she is very adamant. That would kill me. Like, I don't want to do that, nor do I want to run to my dad for help. But the next immediate scene is her and her dad meeting with Fox and discussing everything. The key element of that scene is when he brings up a piece of her work and she says, I didn't know you read that. And the judge saying, I read everything you put out. Like this, what did you just think about the conversation between Mariah and Howard here, and then taking the meeting with Fox and just the look that she gave her dad during that conversation, and then the discussion they had at the end of that conversation?
I think it is a lot of she just wanting that acceptance. I think that was a proud moment of hers. I think we've all had sort of relatable moments like that, either with superiors or family members, where you like, I did something I didn't think you cared, and you're acknowledging it, and this measure of validation feels extremely good. So, I think it was a proud moment for her. Now the end of the conversation says family's still going to be family.
Because again, this is that ambition, and everything kicked in when she let him have it.
Yeah.
When he said, well, maybe you could do this, and she said, I don't want to give up like you did. Not that you weren't justified in giving up because they took everything away from you, but you gave up. It's her being bullheaded, and her basically telling her dad, like, I don't want to be you. Like, this ain't for me. Again, this is her pushback because she still sees herself as an investigator, reporter, journalist. Yeah. So the last thing she wants to do is become a talking head on a network. Did you think that there will be any carryover after that conversation with the judge? Meaning, do you think he would have, and that, I mean, we know how it progresses, but did you think it would have been any like resentment he had towards her after that conversation?
For him, no, but I absolutely think she was going to hold Dad as long as she could. But listen, the only thing I will say about that, family's going to be family, so I think there was no love lost, even though that there were some bombs being thrown. But I think it is important to go back to what you're saying, that like we're seeing media change. So I said this like 2019 about the perception of podcasting. And everybody was like, anybody can get a mic and talk in their basement and blah, blah, blah. That's not real journalism. That's not real news reporting. Pandemic came through and said, so what are all y'all going to do now? And all of a sudden you get on ESPN and your top analysts got their same backdrops, got their same mic equipment and sitting there talking. And all of a sudden the respectives of it completely changed. Now that people are running mobile studios, full-blown studios in their house, and they're getting the same love, respect, and almost say like a accountability as a credibility as these folks that are going into these studios, these major studio facilities that got it all set up for them. You know, why listen, for the folks that live in like New York, New Jersey, I'm sure the folks are like, why even go through the tunnel, hit any of these bridges when I can just do it over here in Jersey instead of going into the office in New York? And they're like, yeah, you're right. We'll zoom you in.
ESPN still does it to this day.
Absolutely.
Pandemic been over. Stephen A. Smith is remote most of the times. And guess where he remote from? Whatever hotel room or home he would like to be.
Exactly.
Because listen, in 2020, Blue Yeti sales went through the roof. Everybody had a Blue Yeti.
Blue Yeti sales, video cards, graphic cards, Logitech cameras. I mean, it went crazy, man.
A transition happened, just like it did in 2010, and now you seeing the ramifications of that transition. Here was the same thing with Mariah, but she just wasn't. She was like most people were, or most people are, when the transition is about to take place. You fight it. Yeah. You say, I'm not ready for this. And that's all it was with her is, I'm not ready for this. And I don't want to be you when this stuff happens. It's a good perspective to show on this type of show. To show that no matter, and also to show that no matter what, your father's still going to love you no matter what. Like, you would have thought this would have been the downfall of the normal show where all of a sudden now they hate each other. As we see later in the episode, it is as far from the truth as humanly possible.
I think the one thing you always got to attach to the judge as this man, the word just slipped out of my head, but you can assure that like he has like self-dignity from something. That's not the word I was going to use, but like at all times, pride. There we go. Yeah. He has pride in all he does. So to hear his daughter be like, oh, you kind of went out as like a laughing stock. You was like the man. Now you're just going on there being like a big ass personality, saying all this other stuff, being loud, and that's how you want to be perceived. And it's kind of like, for him, it's like anything he does, he takes with pride, regardless of what the job is. And like, again, the times have changed. And I'll be the first to say, like, I was never a big fan of New York radio because of their styling of interviews and whatnot. But I would never look at Angie Martinez in her face and say, you're not a good whatever. It's just
You're
their
not a good
style.
interviewer because of the way you do. Or again, I brought him up earlier. Or Stephen A. Smith.
Oh, Stephen A. Smith.
He leaned fully into that character, but that didn't take away his journalistic integrity. And I think that's the thing with the judge. It doesn't take away from his integrity that he's doing this. It actually, for him, it adds to it, because now I'm an unfiltered person. I no longer have to be held back by what other people think I should be or say or do. That's the freedom that comes along with it. But again, back then, a lot of people didn't see it as freedom. We had the Bill O'Reillys. We had people of that nature who just made it seem like it was a laughing stock.
Yeah.
But now look, Bill O'Reilly's the most respected Republican in the country because he's not nearly as crazy as all the rest of them are.
I tell you this though, like Howard Stern always had this very much like you know, you knew what you was getting with him. If Howard Stern had like a virtual show, which I don't even know anything what Howard Stern's up to nowadays, I'm not gonna sit here and say like you prided yourself in terms of having a studio and studio guests and obviously all the craziness that goes on in it. But if you just decide to do virtual stuff, I'm not going to be like, oh, that's not the same Howard Stern I know. It's like, nah, he shifted with the time. That's why a lot of people aren't still around, because when it was time to adapt, people were just like, nah, couldn't be me, which is probably why like I don't have a lot of Instagram followers, because I was damn sure not sold on like having to be that.
Never.
So now I look back, I was like, it's kind of childish though. It's networking. I should have been thinking a little bit more wise.
We do in the professional life. It was just online, and you just looked at it like, nah, that's not me. Yes, it is. Always been you.
How many? Yeah, you listen. How many of them boys around the way that was like, I'd never be on the internet. You don't put me on the internet. You know that type. Don't you take no picture of me. And all this whole thing about because it wasn't cool or it would come back and bite them about being on the internet.
Now they all take pictures of themselves. No one has to take a picture of you. You selfieing it up every opportunity you get. Every dirty mirror you get, you can find. You take a picture of
Ain't it crazy how these thugs was like, don't picture me. Now everybody picturing themselves with guns, doing crimes. All the times, man. The times.
They're dancing on TikTok.
Dancing or TikToks.
Oh man. All right. In the next scene, we get Mariah, as this is her being the most assertive she's ever been in this series. And she just walks into the jail where the lawyer who she pays for is visiting Shreveport. I'm not gonna say his name right to save my life, but here's just her laying out the law to this lawyer who says, one, this is not normal. You shouldn't be here. And her saying, unless you don't want to be paid, unless you want to lose your job because you lost out on hundreds of thousands of dollars, you do exactly what I say with no questions.
Yeah.
But here is her being able to question and find out the information she needs to on Father Pastor Reverend Brown. And this is when she finds out that one, he was buying drugs from this young man who he at one point in time mentored. Two, that he wasn't on the drugs and that he was buying them for a girlfriend. What did you think about this whole revelation? Because that's why I love this conversation between her and Shreveport, as he just lays out exactly who the Reverend was.
Hey, church boys down 1,000 points, man. Once again, these folks of authorities, the backstory always be more wild than the people in the pulpit. God, I can't get none of the names. The other people in the church, not the people in the pulpit. It seems like it's worse of the people in the pulpit than the people who's actually coming to attend the services, shall I say? The communion, if you want to use that word. As soon as I said that, I started to think like, okay, this is the Lisa character somehow involved with the pastor. The pastor was out here. Had a pass. He still tried to connect with the street. I also got a little bit worried too when it sounded like it was about to go a whole nother route with him in the
definitely did. Definitely sounded like it was about to go another route.
Yeah, so like the murder started to become, I ain't gonna say justified, but it started to become a little bit more clear that this guy, well, it became evidently clear that like he was in some stuff, and now he may have some ties to Lisa, which ultimately may pull Mariah's suspicion right, that there is some connection with her and the father murders here. So
Yeah, that's going to be the interesting part to see. Next up, we get Tal and Kimber as they are heading on a ferry to Martha's Vineyard. Here is where he slickly, again, we already kind of addressed it, of him questioning her about Jerry. Immediately, she answers with no issue.
Yeah.
And gives him an answer that you can see Tal is stuck a little bit and knows, I can't fight it. The key part here is we get a character who pops up and who gets all of Tal's attention. And in the process, Kimber, this is how you can tell when you have a control over someone. She didn't get mad. She said, oh, there's no problem with you looking. She was pretty.
Yeah.
You ain't never heard no woman say that before. But this is just showing just the assertiveness she has over Tal. Once they do arrive at the vineyard, this is where she has the appraiser looking over the house, which angers Tal immediately. But during the process, Tal notices that the front door has been broken into. He searches through the house, and this is where he finds the letter from the judge. And this is the first time a lot of the stuff that people think Tal knows everything about is kind of addressed in the letter, including bringing up Lisa's boyfriend, and saying the boyfriend has the information I need you to have. What did you just think about this whole setup from the scene on the boat, the ferry, him running into this person again, and then everything progressing once they get to the vineyard and the letter from the judge?
Maxine looked fine as hell walking across that boat. And I know my man was having an out-of-body moment there. He's like, oh, hell, again? Because you know how she just thrown it at him. But obviously, we talked about it and you brought it up like introductions in this with these characters. She looked like a little this passing by moment. She's here again. You probably want to put your antennas up on what's this whole second chance interaction that she's looking directly at him, and it definitely looks like there's something there. But yeah, him having the Michael Myers knife in the house too was also kind of funny because that brings him back to Ronnie in Power. I was like, oh, okay, here you go, here you go, Grant. Try to throw a little Easter egg in there in the multiverses of Ocean Park here.
Exactly.
Yeah, but the Lisa thing for me, like I said earlier, like now I realize Lisa isn't an acronym. Lisa has a boyfriend. Her boyfriend health is deteriorating, so we're putting down the clues like who's deteriorating. I was like, is it the pastor, father, whoever? I was like, wait, if he's deteriorating, then he's old, and we haven't been introduced to anybody sick. And he would have, and like the only person we actually know that's kind of old right now is Uncle Jack. It was not Uncle Jack, so there's somebody missing. So now we have an old, deteriorating person, Elisa, a client that somebody is sending these fake FBI boys out on, and then Uncle Jack, who is looking for what do you call them? I'm about to call it the manifesto, and that's not at all what they're calling it.
No.
The arrangements. There we go. The arrangements, which obviously he needs them for something. And to avoid something else, or to get it before somebody else. Do any of those connect? Yes. Well, no, because the FBI person says, I don't care about Lisa. So it's like,
what do you care about? What exactly is going on here? Exactly. Everything is, again, this letter does a great job of turning everything on its head. Because this is the judge fully addressing it and bringing up another character, not Lisa, that you actually need to get this information from.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder, where's Lisa at? Or is Lisa still alive? That the judge is pinpointing Lisa's boyfriend is the one you need to go to get this information. He never said it was Lisa that you need to get this information from.
Yeah.
Very interesting the way that's set up. Next up, we go right back to 2010, and this is Mariah as she goes looking for multiple jobs, fails on every interview front of getting a job, and then she goes back to her dad and asks, should we call Fox back? Yeah. And him saying, this job wasn't for you. You already stated that. This is her apologizing to her dad if she offended him in any way. Not much to talk about in that scene between them two. But next up, we go right back to the present time. And this is Mariah being, again, the reporter that she is, as she heads right back to the church. Here talking to the church secretary, slickly brings up Reverend Father Pastor Brown's girlfriend, then offers them $25,000 towards the church. And in the meantime, while the secretary is going to get a receipt, Mariah searches through the Reverend's office to get more information on him. Just what did you just think about that quick dialogue between them back and forth? Her searching through the office, and then her magically knowing that woman was close and getting out that office only to come back around her and run into her and say, I'll take that receipt.
Damn, that girl good. That's all I said. That girl good. That girl good. Yeah. And I mean, like, I don't know. It's not really saying a lot about the church right now. Again, church folk down like 1,000 points. Church authority members down like 2,000 points. They down bad, man. It's a bad time to be going to look for God in that sanctuary.
Yeah. Next up, we get Tal as he's just everything's going through his head here. Excelsior keeps on running through Tal's head.
Yeah.
And that's the last phrase that his father uses in his note. But here, right after going through everything in his head, him trying to work everything out, he gets a call from Mariah who tells him Reverend Brown was into a lot of freaky stuff. And this is where Tal informs her there's a letter from Dad and lets her know everything that's in the letter. And then for the first time, he says, we need to look into this, which immediately Mariah perks up like, wait a minute, that's not the way this was ever going in the first place.
Yeah.
But now that we need to look into it, I get it. What did you think about finally the siblings coming together and understanding there is something to look into? Because Tal was very adamant of saying that was not the case.
Yeah, it's not even the sibling. I wouldn't even say per se it's like the siblings coming together. It's like now Tal is finally really getting on board that there may be some foul play in his father's death. Mariah's already believed it. He's always denied it and just been looking for like other things like the chess piece. But now I think he realized like, okay, yeah, we probably need to work together. So finally.
Exactly. Finally. Next up, nothing to talk about here. This is Kimber again telling Tal, I'm going out. You need to, as you said, address it earlier. She tells him, I'm going out. You need to find something to do with yourself. Tal says, well, I saw you at this restaurant. She says, well, maybe you should go out because you need to. And then right afterwards, he again puts her location where he can follow it indefinitely. So at this point, it's some suspicion. He just doesn't know exactly where it is. The following scene is Mariah finally telling Howard, you need to propose to me. And this is after a day of rejection from everybody, including her father, she feels. And she tells Howard, we need to get married.
Yeah.
And then we go right back to the present time. And this is her going through, I wanted to call it a date book. It's not a date book. I forget, a planner.
Yeah, planner.
A planner. And this is where she sees Lisa's name written all over this planner with different dates that they were supposed to meet up. The only confusion I had, this was the Reverend's book. When did she get her hands on it? Did she take it out of his office?
Yep. Sure enough did. Clever.
Now, did this put any thought process that possibly this older gentleman that the judge was talking about could have been the Reverend?
Yeah. I don't know. I thought it beforehand, but this solidified it. And then this is because of this how this show is. I'm like, all right, that's too easy. So I feel like there's definitely another bit of a curveball here. But yeah, the Reverend Father, Pastor, Deacon was out there just doing whatever he wanted to do, man. Also, I think it's like, I don't know, maybe it is old school for men to have planners. I don't know too many that kept a very outlined schedule of his life that detailed to every appointment. That seems really interesting there, and it's nothing sexist about it, but like most secretaries are women. Most even in the early ages when it came down to like data analysts or just anybody who was like doing anything with like trends or most things like that, it was mostly women. It became before that's a long other discussion, but like nonetheless, the organization of the corporate world or any type of business came by the hands of women. So like then I was like, he was that detailed on everything, and I was like, all right, there's something else here.
A lot of people are. A lot of people, especially clergymen, because they do like to write everything down so they know who am I meeting with, what am I meeting with them about. Because you see, a lot of that was pinpoint. prayer with Lisa, lunch with Lisa's boyfriend. Like all of it was labeled, and it's like he labeled it that way so he knew exactly this is the person I'm meeting with, this is the reason I'm meeting with them, this is what we need to discuss. Like that's, and we also saw the judge had one beforehand that Ty was going through. I want to say in episode 1.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something to really think about. Next up is Ty reaching out to fake Agent McDermott to meet up. And this is right after talking to Mariah, him noticing like, okay, it's a lot of information. For some odd reason here, Ty thinks McDermott is a safe person to reach out to. We don't know why he thinks that, because nothing about it says he should think that at that point.
We don't. That's the statement. We don't.
Exactly. Next up is the explosive scene. We already kind of hinted towards it and talked about it. And this is Mariah as Howard visits her parents, announcing their engagement. And then the big conversation with her and the judge at the end. The only element we did not talk about in this scene was right after the big blow up, when she was letting the judge have it and saying, "You don't want me to be happy." And her bringing back up Fox News and him breaking it to her. It was Fox who rejected her. But I don't want to let you know they did, because my job has always been to protect you kids. And then we see a certain look over her face when he tells her that. This, just to close out that whole scene between them two, would you just think about the performance them two put on?
Yeah,
we already talked about the details of it, the performance them two put on.
You know what you're getting with Forrest anytime. You give him some dialogue, which, you know, for the most part, you know, they always say, like, they give Forrest an outline, he do what he have to do. So you already know what Forrest is going to do. You give him, you drop that. You drop the background noise, any sound effects, the score, anything. You pipe in his audio hot and let him do what he got to do, because you're going to feel something when he's talking. But again, it goes back to Tiffany, who stands toe-to-toe with him, and they make this scene come to life. So, but in terms of the characters, man, like, it's the hard truth. Yeah. You know, you want to fact check this, then go look at every single time that you know that your dad showed up for you and made a good decision for you. So, like, we've all had that desires in life that we really wanted, and I mean, like, it goes, the list goes on and on and on. That car you wanted, that you were obsessed with, but your parents told you no, and that's because they knew it was a limit, and the moment you would have dropped the money for it, would have broke down on you, and you were bitching because you didn't get it. And then that's thing, you know, you see somebody else with it and it's broken down, and you like, God, I'm glad I didn't get that. Or there's so many other things you could just go down that list of things on. I think that's just one of those moments, the realization where she kind of has to sit there and take a look in the mirror. So, you know, families could be complicated, but I mean, these are some of the times, those pivotal moments that you reflect back on them.
There you go, because there's so many of you all who wanted that 2010 Dodge Charger with 140,000 miles on it, with a 28% interest rate.
Yep.
And so one of your parents said, "You will not buy that car.
Mom, can you co-sign for me?" Hell no. You mad the whole day. I'm moving out. I ain't never did this.
You never want me to be great.
Yep. And they just sitting there like this, man.
The part of life. But next up, we see everything the judge told her kind of coming to fruition in the following scene, as we get to present day Mariah, as she walks in her house. And you see her just looking around, one kid under the table, on a tablet, under the piano, on a tablet, and her tell Howard, "Here, I need a break. I need to spend more time at the other house. It's just so much going on that I need to take care of." Clearly, this is a lie. Clearly is that she needs to look into everything. But not only that, it kind of feels here that she, in a way, feels like, if this is where my ambition has got me right now, I need to separate a little bit, which is everything the judge told her, because her husband, as we've seen multiple times this episode, gave her everything she wanted. And the judge said it, "We're going to have a couple of kids and lose your ambition, because he's going to give you everything you could possibly want." And here we already see money's not an object with her. She can spend as she wants. She can do as she wants. No questions are ever asked there. What do you think about closing out your final thoughts on Mariah this episode?
Yeah, that's it. That was a great closure there. Just, again, fantastic performance by Tiffany. So much more to invest in with the character. Love this episode for her.
And the episode ends with Tal arriving to meet with Agent McDermott, and boom,
Christmas was canceled.
There you go. As the car that Agent McDermott was waiting for Tal in blows up before Tal can reach close to it, an episode fades to black with My Mind Is Playing Tricks on Me. Playing again is a pivotal song in this episode because the trick could be for Tal. Why did you think McDermott was a safe person to talk to in the first place?
Yeah.
What did you think? Your final thoughts on chapter 3 of Empire of Ocean Park?
All right, so no Uncle Jack.
Of Ocean Park.
Yeah, no Empire. You trying to give my man what's the place a job?
Lee Daniels.
Lee Daniels, yep. No Addison this episode, so interesting. And then no Uncle Jack. So with two key characters not being around, I expect it to be sort of heavily focused on them next episode. I think we learned so much about the characters that we did feature. Kimber is definitely something of a force that is growing and growing and growing. It's like a hurricane getting ready to hit the shore. And then I think Howard, who's been nothing but this a kiss-ass husband right now, or just a loyal husband, I'm sorry. But how much longer can he, when does the dynamics change in the household that makes her, what would change personally with him that can shift the dynamics in that household, which will ultimately affect Mariah's Mariah going forward. So it's little stuff like that. I'm kind of like looking forward to seeing what's going to happen. Like more from Howard, Addison returning, more from Uncle Jack, Maxine, who just again graces us with her presence. And then that's it. Like Mary Jane when she hits the red carpet, just like scoops through real quick. You've seen her, but that's all you're gonna get. That's all you're gonna get right now. But yeah, I'm super. It's been hell of a 3 episodes, man. Yeah. For shows that I don't like breaks, if they had dropped 3 episodes and said we'll see y'all back in like a month, I think this is a lot to still really make and even go back and rewatch and start to pick up on things. And actually probably can iron out the timelines even better now, having watched it the first time and kind of seeing where things are going. So it's been good. It's been good.
So let us know what you all not only thought about episode 3, but where do you think this series is going? What do you think about Tal and Kimber's relationship? Is there a secret that she's holding that can blow up everything humanly possible? What do you think about Mariah and her constantly looking into everything? Could this be a backfire to her relationship with Howard, or could we see a situation where Howard helps join in to do whatever, fulfill whatever dream if wife want? Like, that's going to be the interesting part. And who's Lisa? And who's Maxine? And is Maxine Lisa? And Lisa Maxine? Like, that's going to be a very interesting element of the show also to pay attention to. But comment, subscribe, like, as we'll be back every Sunday at 11 p.m. as the episode airs on MGM's network at 10 p.m. You can catch us at 11 p.m. right after that episode airs. Then just come and chill with us, or watch us first and then watch the episode. People do that all the time.
And listen, if you're going to go do a deep dive in the IMDb trying to figure out who's who, they ain't giving you no help there. So
you can
tune into the episode. There's nobody going to be named Lisa down there. Don't look for it. They did.
Again, thank y'all for tuning in this week. Peace, people.